Hey everybody, it's the Commodore from the Clan of the Grey Wolf, and you are watching the 11th installment of the weekly Wringer series. This week in the weekly Wringer, I'm going to wrap up last week's questions surrounding the magnificence of, or lack thereof, of the IBM Watson Jeopardy crushing machine, and give you my thoughts after I review your comments about what I would love to see Watson do. And then I'm going to ask you all a question that I think is really going to stir the pot a little bit about superheroes, to see what you guys think about that. Okay, so let's get down to business. Last week, as I said, I asked you all a question about IBM's Watson, which had just decimated the competition in Jeopardy for one reason or another, which many of you pointed out. So, the question I asked you is, what's the first thing you'd do, or what's the first question you'd ask if you had your own private Watson? Great responses. You guys really got to the heart of some of the issues that are present that Watson, or the concept of a Watson, really brings up. And begged a lot of questions about the difference between what we know as human knowledge and what we would think of as computer knowledge. Also concepts of understanding as we know it. So really cool, deep questions that come out of a very stupid and silly kind of idea and concept. So I wanted to highlight a few of the really awesome answers that are out there, and as I always do, just to show some of the cool ideas that are floating out through the community and highlight some of the things that I thought were just fantastic. Many of you talked about using it as a personal assistant. Man, I am loving that, okay? Come home at night. Hey, Watson, get in there, finish the dishes, sweep the floor. I'm going to go play Halo. See you when you're done, right? Man, it doesn't get much better than that, right? Kind of the old Rosie from the Jetsons, right? That whole robot assistant kind of idea. All right, cool. That's a good way to use it. I'm going to agree with you guys on that. Some of you said you'd like to ask it life questions. Questions that are, not very easy to answer or require a certain amount of contemplative thought and maybe even some degree of human consciousness, which is something that Watson obviously has no conception of itself, but has only as much knowledge as would be out there in a database somewhere. But we'll get to that in just a minute. So anyway, the life questions you guys asked, for probably for two reasons. One, because you'd actually like to know some of these answers to see what it would come up with. Secondly, just because you'd like to throw a wrench at it. Throw something at it that it just can't answer and see what it would come up with. I love both of those concepts. I love the idea of trying to trick the machine a little bit. But as I think the community really came to the idea of, Watson really is very good at looking at what people think about things, indexing that all together into a common source, doing a little bit of statistical analysis, and then dropping out the most probable answer to that question. Or in the case of Jeopardy, the most proper question that would receive that kind of an answer. So what that means is that, if we asked it a question about life, it's just going to look through all the different, statistical categories. It's going to look at all the different popular culture answers to that kind of a question, and it's just going to give us whatever is the most popular. Which is why I think Estolia is absolutely correct. It would, if you ask it what the meaning of life is, it would probably come back and say 42, because it would think you were making a reference to Hitchhiker's Guide. Completely and totally agree. Oh, other thing I want to say, Estolia, absolutely keeping me honest. Thanks so much, my friend, for contributing. Completely correct. When I talked about voice recognition, I completely misspoke. Watson does not have the ability to recognize vocal patterns through data. What Watson does, and what I was trying to point to, was more of its linguistic understanding. So in terms of idiomatic phrases that are untranslatable, for example, we have that for every language. There are certain idiomatic phrases, and for those of you who don't know, an idiomatic phrase is something that cannot be directly translated. It doesn't mean what it literally translates to be. Watson understands that. It understands pop cultural references. It understands slang to a certain degree, and that's a pretty amazing thing. So, but then again, it really does exactly the kind of things that Google does nowadays. It understands a certain amount of slang and parses that text in really interesting ways. But you're absolutely correct. I did misspeak and say it had vocal recognition. It doesn't do that. It just understands, to a certain degree, can parse human speech in terms of language to be able to understand what you're exactly getting at. Good stuff. I also got to say, wow, man, Barney made a comment that I just think shows the amount of utter, I don't know, how much we can really contradict ourselves in a matter of about 2 sentences. Because Barney says, you know what, I'm going to use Watson, really, really honest and open, I'm going to use Watson to do the most good possible, right? Great idea. I'm just going to use Watson to do the most good I can possibly do. Within 2 sentences of this, Barney says, but you know what? The first thing I'm going to do is take it to a casino and game the shit out of the system and try to get as much money as I possibly can. That's the kind of contradiction I love to see on the Wringer. So I appreciate that, Barney. Fantastic. Some of you talked about using Watson for games. I want to play Risk with it. See what happens with its statistical abilities. I would not want to play Risk with Watson. I'm not sure Watson could play Risk, but I know that there are a lot of websites out there, a lot of amalgamated knowledge about Risk assimilated into one particular place where Watson could look and go, okay, well, you know, it's probably the best strategy is just to do this kind of baseline statistical analysis that it could do, and then it could tell you, okay, this is how I want to move. I don't know, whatever. Some of you said that you'd like to play, Big Blue Jr., right? The concept of Big Blue Jr., play chess. Again, same kind of thing. Now, chess is not solved, okay? Now, what I mean by that is it's not solved the way tic-tac-toe is solved, right? If in tic-tac-toe, think war games, right? Matthew Broderick. If both players play with optimum strategy, stalemate inevitably occurs. There is no winning scenario if both players play with optimum strategy. Chess is not that way. There is no optimum discerned strategy that can always play to a stalemate. It's coming with the power of the computation that we have these days. It's only a matter of time till chess becomes solved, but right now it is not. But Watson really doesn't have that ability, does he? The best Watson could do, again, just like with Risk, is get out there and find different strategies, do some kind of statistical analysis as to what kind of situations would be viable, and then try to make a decision based on that. Big Blue or Deep Blue, or whatever the name was, its only job was to win at chess. Watson's only job, at least for what we know, there's probably some deeper R&D going on that we don't know about, but Watson's job, first and foremost, win at Jeopardy. So it really doesn't know any of that stuff. But yeah, so, and the other thing, I love the idea of having, and I think Overheat posted this, of being able to translate Japanese or other import games on the fly, so you can play some of the great gems that were in Japanese games that never made it to America, without the need of translation in between for a human translation. Cool. Loving that. That's a great idea, especially if they can learn to translate some of those idiomatic Japanese phrases that don't necessarily translate very well, which result in English translations of some of our favorite games. Crime fighting. Yeah. Love that. Love to see you use Watson. You know, it's like Batman's or, you know, any of the big superheroes like Crime Computer, right? You go down, you say, Watson, what can I do, man? How can I figure this out? How can I go catch this villain that's doing this? And Watson, you know, it's most probable that he's probably doing this or that. Bam, you're there. Loving that, guys. Use it for crime fighting. Here's my favorite answer we got from the crowd, though. I'm loving the idea of using it as an investment system. Let's do a pilot. Let's get Watson out there to study all the market data for a couple months, let's say, and see how good Watson could be predicting market trends based on statistical analysis. Fantastic. I'm loving the entrepreneurial spirit this week for the Weekly Wringer. You guys did a great job with that. So, fired up. Let's see what kind of money we could make with Watson. Loving it. That's probably what I would end up doing too, guys. Great answers. All right, now on to what I think about it. Let me tell you this. I think Watson, let's talk about what Watson shows us positively that computers can do, and let's show it also let's see what it shows us about the limitations of what computers can do.